Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cables to Clouds podcasts. I'm your host this week, Tim, and with me, of course, is my co-host Chris at BGP Main on Blue Sky. I am Carpe-DMVPN on Blue Sky, and we have a guest with us who I am not sure whether or not he is on Blue Sky. Jason, Blue Sky?
I am not Blue Sky, unfortunately. I probably should join Blue Sky, but I've got so many to deal with now, I just kind of ignore it.
Well, that's fair. And so we have brought a longtime friend of ours and finally have been able to get him on the show to record with us. Jason Gooley, a man who probably doesn't need a huge amount of introduction to most of the people that listen, but for the 5 or 6 of them that may not, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Jason?
Oh my gosh, where do I even begin? I'm about 5'7" and completely bald. So I'm Jason Gooley. I have been at Cisco for a little over 11 years now. I went from an SE, field SE, to running as a technical evangelist for all worldwide enterprise networking for all of EN for Cisco, and software sales, because it's worldwide enterprise networking and software sales. I always forget and software sales. So I said, if you can get through that title on the slide, I'm like presenting or something like that. If you can get through technical evangelist, worldwide enterprise networking, and software sales, Cisco Systems Incorporated, you'll be able to get through the next half hour of whatever it is we're going to talk about. You'll be in great shape. So I did that for a long time, for about 7 years. And then I just recently in November took a role back on the same, kind of like the same team for the same manager who originally hired me at Cisco in 2013. And so I'm still a technical evangelist, still doing that conversation with customers, presenting, doing all that stuff, Cisco Live, all that kind of stays the same. But instead of just focusing on EN and doing it for the whole world, I'm doing it for the states of Illinois and Wisconsin for specifically our commercial team. And which makes it, I mean, there's a lot of stress off to some degree, right? Because I was traveling constantly. I was constantly traveling, which is great and fun. But then after a while, you're like, I need you to go somewhere. They tell you this on a Thursday. I need you to be in New York on Monday or something. And you're like, I got 2 kids. You know, I can't just be like, bye, and be gone. And then for a week, it's like, you need to give me a little more notice. And you know, it was just funny that I had such a blast on that role and going all over the world and talking to customers everywhere. And I've learned so much from just engaging with people that it was the best. It was a really great role. It was fantastic. But when I came back here and I went to this team, I have probably the best leader I've ever had, you know. I mean, just the nicest guy. And it's not just because he made a decision to hire me originally, which is a big reason, but he made that decision twice and brought me back yet again. So clearly, he's definitely a good guy. So I've been doing that. So my new role is similar in nature, but I'm also taking on all architectures now. So it's not just EN. So I'm learning about a lot of AI, a lot of cool stuff with AI, security, things like Hypershield and AI defense and all these other new cool things that got announced at Cisco Live in Europe. Mm-hmm. Really a lot of fun. And what's awesome is I get to go in and have the conversations with customers about, you know, what do you want to do? Or what do you, like, here's the art of the possible, right? Here's the art of all the things that we can do. We can combine AI and collaboration and all these things, and obviously security and segmentation and all of this, it just naturally comes together. So it's really nice to go back to being, they call it a generalist. Mm-hmm, so we're talking about all these different technologies, but I think it's been a great change for me. And then ultimately outside of that, you know, I think a lot of it between that and outside of Cisco, I write a lot of books and videos for Cisco Press, Pearson O'Reilly, do a lot of training. I just did a live EN Core lesson crash course for Pearson, just ended yesterday.
Wait, a live what? Sorry?
It's the EN Core 350-400.
Oh, okay, got it.
But it's the crash course, so it's a 3-day crash course, 3-4 hour days versus the week-long. You know, it's kind of like get you going, but it's like theory a little bit, but then we go right into the command line on everything. And then I do programmability, and all these technologies and topics are coming right out of the EN Core book. So it's like, this is what you're going to see. So it's for the folks who have read the book but want a little bit more and haven't gone for the full-on deep boot camp, or they're not necessarily going directly for their CCIE because, I mean, the EN core is pretty much the new CCIE written at this point.
Yeah, that's right.
So it's broad. There is some depth to it, but I think the super depth is when you get into the IE studying of everything. So you'll see that's where those cutoffs kind of are. But I mean, I think a lot of that between that and doing training, I've been fortunate. I got the new CCST IT support video course coming out. So that is kind of Cisco's. I don't want to say A+, but it's very in the vein of I want to get to be a desktop help desk networks or intro network support kind of technologist. And it's very like this is where you would start your career really. And I'm talking about things like this is a processor, this is memory, this is a motherboard, this is how it connects. And I'm ripping apart computers on camera, which I had to go through all this hassle to get this microphone boom thing that could attach to a DSLR camera and all this other stuff to
so you could show it, right?
to show it because you can't hold that. I mean, it just doesn't work, right? But unfortunately,
you should be able to do your
show you something.
Yeah. at least you'll be able to do
I gotta stay far enough back to be like, and this, is where you plug in the SATA drive,
At least now you'll have the equipment to do some unboxing videos on YouTube.
That's a good point.
In the future,
for the YouTube, maybe become a YouTube.
Somebody just send me. Okay, hey, somebody send me something so I can unbox it. I don't even care what it is. As long as it doesn't tick or go boom, or it's not a glitter bomb.
Right.
But it was funny because that's where I started my career was computer desktop support, helped us building computers, my A+ certification. All of this is where I got into technology. And what was cool was that to see the outline of the blueprint and to make a course for it and to just literally be able to be like, all right, this is so awesome because it's all from literal just things that I've done. Like the whole course is basically just stories of things that I've gone through. And of course you cover the technology, right? But why is this important? Oh, I remember I had a hospital that had an issue. They had two switches, whatever. It didn't fail over. You lost your config. There's all of these things that come up that kind of leads you into this direction. So working on that course now, and it's been a lot of fun with the CCNA stuff too.
I gotta ask because I didn't hear about. I had heard about this cert, and it's not necessarily the agenda that we're going to talk about is basically cert stuff in general. But like I kind of have to veer a little bit. This was a CC. You said IST. Is that right?
So CCST, so Cisco Certified Support Technician. There's 3 of them now. So there's cybersecurity, networking, and now IT support. So that's what's confusing. CCST, Cisco Certified Support Technician, IT support. It's like
these are like specializations for this ST bit. They're like 3 different flavors of this ST bit.
It's an actual certification, and each one of those is a certification. So it's not like a specialization on the CCNP as much as it is. I guess it kind of.
It's a flavor. It's a flavor.
It's a flavor, right? Because it's CCST, and there's 3 different ones. But and I think they just recently announced that they're renaming the cyber ops to just cybersecurity, I believe, or something. I think it's just the Cisco Certified Cybersecurity versus whatever it was, Cisco Certified Cyber Ops, CCNA Cyber Ops, or whatever.
Yeah,
I heard a lot of things about that, but you can see how there can be a little bit of confusion in some of that. But it's been a lot of fun though, just looking at some of those older, or I wouldn't even say older technologies. It's very relevant new stuff. Just not something I focused on in a long time. So it's super cool.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think didn't Russ White do one of the other books, I think?
Yeah, he did. I think he did the networking one.
Yeah, okay.
He wrote the networking book.
That's right.
So I'm doing the official video course. I don't even know if there's a proposal in or who would be the author for the IT support book. But now with the CCNA, this is the other thing, as you may be aware of that I'm working on, is that there's been a lot of splash about me taking over for Wendell for the CCNA and everything. And then it's been an exciting and crazy journey to think that the gentleman who started me off, and I'm reading these books, I'm going to be taking over and writing for whoever is starting their career, right?
Yeah.
Passing of the torch.
We're talking about if there's anybody listening that doesn't know this, we're talking about Wendell Odom, who is basically like an OG in the networking space. I mean, he wrote most of the CCNA level books that almost everybody uses to get bootstrapped, like learn the CCNA stuff. I know I did. Yeah, no, that's really cool. I was actually lucky enough to meet Wendell in June last year at Cisco Live, and
Nice.
it was interesting actually, because I was walking around handing out copies of my book to like everybody who would take one. Usually, I'd have to, point finger guns at them to make them take it.
I'm sorry, I have to pay you to take my book.
But Wendell was really cool. I don't even, we were talking in the Cisco store, and we were talking about something, and I was like, "Oh man, here, like, Wendell, you did so much to help me get started. I'd love to just give you a copy of my book." And he was very gracious. He flipped through it. He said, "This is awesome, dude." And I ended up talking to some people from Cisco Press about it and stuff, and then they were like, "Okay, Wendell," the Cisco Press people were like, "Okay, Wendell, it's time to take a picture with your new CCNA book." And he was like, "Oh," and then he was like, "Hey, come on over here, man. You got to be in this picture holding your book." I was like,
Nice.
holy, I was like, "No, Wendell, I'm good. I'm good." Wendell's such a class act, dude.
He's
like,
he
is the best dude, like straight up.
He is. So when little background, he's done 10 editions for 23 years.
I know.
That's
Crazy.
insane. And probably, I mean, unless you went down that other path that we were talking about, right? Almost a lot of the people that went CCNA used his books.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no way to not acknowledge that, right?
For sure.
It's so impactful and so incredibly huge what he's done for the entire community and me personally and everybody I know who's gone for their CCNA. I mean, every once in a while you find a couple folks who'll get a certification and use alternate methods of study other than the Cisco Press, book and everything. But
Yeah.
by and large, man, almost every CCNA out there, this guy. In addition, they pull a lot of that content from the books and stuff for the Network Academy.
Yeah, for NetAcad, yeah.
Everybody who's going to get Network Academy, I mean, I'm just from a statistic, this is kind of one of the things that is still what makes my mind want to blow up, right? Is I'm sitting at our global sales meeting just this past year, or the one before that, right? And they had said they were wanting to expand Network Academy. And one of the statistics that they had said was the Network Academy has been around for 25 years. It was the 25-year anniversary of Network Academy. And they said they have certified 17 million people.
Holy shit. 17 million.
Academy.
Well, obviously through NetAcad.
Right?
Yeah.
And then this is the part that blew my head off, right? It said, we expect to certify another 25 million in the next 10 years.
That's crazy.
Just to go from 17 years to get, 25 years to get 17 million, they want to do 25 million more in 10 years.
Yeah, so like 8 million more within 10 years.
Right? Yeah. So I'm sitting there listening to this. And this was shortly after the Cisco Live that they came to me, Cisco Press came to me and asked me if I would be interested in taking over the CCNA, which blew my mind again, right? So this was just a couple months later, because like we have Cisco Live typically in June, and then our global sales meeting is usually about the end of August. So like 2 months later, after I found out that I'm going to be doing this, I hear this. Well, then I start thinking about, well, they use all the content to feed the Network Academy.
Yeah, dude.
And then he said 10 years, and I'm like, they're going to be using my stuff to feed 25 million students. And even if you cut that down to just a fraction, like 1 million students.
Yeah,
It's just so, and that to me makes my heart glow, makes me nervous at the same time.
Right.
But it just, all of those things makes me just smile, because I was the kid who's never going to make it anywhere.
Yeah.
And all the people we can help doing this, oh my gosh, dude.
I just,
man.
I mean, yeah, it's a hard thing to think about, just because of the scale of it, right? And that's the case for, the CCNA is ubiquitous pretty much. Like people that want to learn networking, I mean, you have people out there will say like, oh, well, CCNA is too much, just do like Network Plus or whatever. But the truth is, like, from a total package training curriculum of networking, it's hard. I don't know. No other vendor I'm aware of puts out the total package training.
Yeah. And it's also interesting to see the way that people, I was going to say, it's sought after. And the way that people go after certain certifications it's an interesting thing because, like I said, I started off, I got my A+ certification. I went and I got my CNA Novell 411B. For anybody out there who has less hair than me who knows what I just said. And I went down that path, did some Microsoft certifications, I kind of just kept down that path. But when I heard about Cisco, I didn't know what it was. Like, I've been on a million podcasts talking about this. Like, my best friend calls me up and he said, there's this thing. It's called Cisco, and they have 3 certifications. And the one is the Cisco Certified Network Associate. And if you go get that, you'll make over $250,000 a year. Now, mind you, I think I was 16 years old because I got certified and started going through all that when I was 17. So 16 years old. He tells me this. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's incredible. And then he says, well, no, dude, you don't understand. There's a CCNP, which is a Cisco Certified Network Professional. And if you get that, you make like $375,000 a year. And I'm like,
wow.
What? What? And I'm like, and he goes, dude, but there's one called the CCIE, the Cisco Certified Internetwork Expert. There's less than 500 of them in the entire world. And if you get that certification, you will make more than the president. That's exactly what he said. That is exactly what he said.
I think you were already over the president when you got to NP level. But
I'm over here like, I'm going to go get my CCIE and go work at Cisco one day. And this, I just said this. It just was something I just said. I hadn't even seen, experienced, touched, or knew what the heck Cisco was, dude. In my mind, I was like, I wanted to do any more than the president. I was like, That's where I was with it. And I figured I was already doing Novell networking, and I really saw that I loved networking, and then NT, Windows NT 3.1, 3.1, 3.1.
Yeah.
Okay, right? I'm old. And then I realized that was something that I was like, dude, I think I want to get into this. And I started, believe it or not, looking at these books and stuff. And there was also a router simulator. It might have been BOSIN, but it was either BOSIN or there was something eSIM or router. I think it might have been BOSIN or something. There was a virtual simulator for routers and stuff back then.
Like NetSim? I think there was one called NetSim.
It might have been NetSim. But basically it's like software, you double click it and it's like you're on routers, but
like Packet Tracer.
It was like pre-Packet Tracer. Yeah, exactly. So I was using that and just going and stuff, and I fell in love with it. And I remember, just going through all these different books and things and trying to figure out what it was and convincing my dad to buy me a CCNA study kit off of eBay. And you're talking like 97.
Oh yeah,
right?
That's money.
So it was like $5,500 if I remember right. And it was all it was now, right? Back then it was a big deal. 225.01 routers, right? A 1924 switch. They had an ADTRAN CSU DSU external mux. You had all the V35 cables and the modems and all the stuff that came with it, and your 60-pin serial, and then your AUI adapter to go your 10 meg and all this. And that was it. I think it was running iOS 10, dude. And that was all it was. They didn't give you labs. They just sold you this kit of gear. And you're like, okay.
Go figure out what to do with it.
Right? So I'm like, you're trying to build stuff. And it was kind of cool, right? Because you're looking at what you've studied from a book perspective. And I'm a bad learner from reading. I am very much a visual or touchy guy. Not, so I'm like, I was sitting there, I was just like, well, I've got to start getting some hands-on experience with this. So I started copying. There's no copy paste. I'm like typing in what I'm reading and doing in the book in here and trying to make stuff work, right? And then that was when you started, like, that's I think when my hair loss started. originally, because
That'll do it.
all of a sudden you're plugging stuff in and you're not sure that it's some stupid encapsulation thing on a V35 or it's some oddball twisted thing that's not in the CCNA book, right? It's more of a transport issue or a clocking or a timing or a signaling thing or something like that was just like, you never knew what was going on and why it wouldn't work. But then every once in a while, you can duplicate an exact thing from the book. Like, oh, I can do 2 routers back to back using this one cable, crossover cable with the AUI adapters, and do RIP. Right? You know?
Yeah. So I think what we should talk about is you've written. God, how many books do you have now? Is it your name
8
before?
Now.
Is it 8?
Now.
I was gonna say we haven't reached 10 yet. It's like 8 or.
It's 8, and then but it's so weird because it sprawls out the way that when you get published, you get this ISBN number that tells you what your library.
I had to buy mine, but I know.
It's super great. It's the coolest feeling in the world. And one day I'll actually make it to DC. I've never been there to look.
Library of Congress, yeah.
I wrote. I think it'd be cool. But when they bundle things like the EN Core and an NARC together, that's a third ISBN. Or ISBN.
Yeah, that's right.
So now, technically, with my video courses have ISBNs and all this, I have like 19 publications or something. But there's really only like 8 books.
Like physical books,
4 video courses or 5 or 6, I don't know, something like that.
So Chris and I just finished, and a third author, Steve, who's a friend of the podcast, he's been on. We haven't had him on in a while, actually. We need to have him on again. We just finished a book, a certification book for publishing for AWS, the Advanced Networking specialty. And what I wanted to talk about a little bit was, and you're perfect guy to talk about it, is kind of like, how do you feel differently about? Because I've got one book which is like the Hybrid Cloud Handbook, which is not a certification book. It's like a teaching network engineers how to work in the cloud book. But then we have this cert book, and so like, how do you feel differently about like writing a book that's not specifically certification based versus like one that's like, meant to pass a certification? It's a totally different opinion.
Yeah, it's a different expectation for the reader too.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's the one thing I noticed. And here's the best 2 examples of specifically that, right? The first book I ever did was Programming and Automating Cisco Networks, right? And that book became the unofficial certification guide for the, see if I remember this one again, it's like my title, right? Cisco Certified Enterprise Networking Programmability Specialist, or
ENPRE or whatever it was.
Specialist exam.
Programmability
Engineer Specialist.
The NPRE or ENPRE or something like that. I can't remember what it was.
It was right, but it was focused on enterprise networking and APIC EM and stuff like that. That was the book for that exam. That's how I got the relationship with DevNet and the Godfather thing and all that, was because writing that book and partnering with Susie Wee and the DevNet team and going all over and really getting the word out about DevNet and programmability and using the examples from that for training became this whole thing, right? It was unofficial. So when we first wrote it, we weren't thinking that you were going to pass an exam.
Right. It was just data or info.
So just like you mentioned, you're teaching the cloud thing. I'm like, you're like, how do you make a peanut butter? It was like, one really cool example from the book was like deconstructing a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. This is bread. Like, this is peanut butter. This is jelly. Cool. A computer's like, great. I don't care. Now you have to say, take peanut butter, apply jelly. Like, you have to build it with programmatic prompts, right, to get it to work. So it's a totally different feel. And I learned a lot from that book, because when I did not know a lot of network programmability and engineering. I didn't know it at all when I first got approached to write that book from Ryan there and Cisco Press. And one of the things that I had said was, I have to learn a lot of this to write it. And so I wrote the way that I learned, to like cut out all the middleman, all the junk in the middle, just to get right to the point. And everybody said they liked that concept. So then when I went to another example, software-defined WAN, the SD-WAN book, right, that we wrote.
Yeah.
That one is specifically for the EN SD-WAN implementation exam. So we wrote it to that thing.
Yeah, to a blueprint basically. Like you have
But
a you
it
have
does
a
not say official certification guide on it.
Yeah, I was going to say I actually don't think it said cert guide on it.
It does, and it was just one of those things. I think it was just like a miss, really, because we had that blueprint to write it to, so we wrote it to specifically that blueprint, so you would pass the test and then some, right?
I remember talking to Dustin about this. Dustin Schumann, one of the authors. Yeah, we just happen to both be. We know him. He's a good friend of ours, and I remember that there was a lot of back and forth at the time about, is this going to be a certification guide or is this going to be a kind of like the one you were talking about? Is this going to be more of an instructional usability, if you will, guide?
Yeah. Well, and then here's how that all sussed out. So I gave him overlead author for the second edition for that book because I have to focus on CCNA. I just don't.
Yeah.
That's why I had to give up EN Core and DevNet Associate and all of these other things because there's just no way. Like it was insane that I wrote those four that 1 year. It was like I was dying, literally, mentally, physically, trying to get that stuff done because I didn't want to let anybody down. So Dustin was the obvious logical choice, right?
Yeah.
So I kicked it over to him, and he got some amazing new authors who I know very well, and they're great. And they wrote a second edition. Again, it did not come out as an OCG, although it is written, again, to pass the EN specialization exam,
Yeah.
right? So it is very much a mixture of what we were talking about, because now it is with the intent you're going to pass, but we want you to pick this book up and you just know it and you can go implement it, right?
Yeah.
So that became a hybrid version. And then the reason I'm bringing this up is when you start talking about now being on like the EN Core, I was on the CCIE CCDE Evolving Technology Study Guide, which was just an ebook that had like 3 chapters. That was an official study guide, but that section of the exam is dead and gone, so that's away. So CCNA and CCNP, it's a different feel, and I'm sure you get this, but you're going through and in the same sense, you're like, I've got to be able to try to figure out how to technically explain this, so you can follow along and give you the steps.
Oh yeah, 100%.
But at the same time, I've been in sales for a very long time now, but I'm an engineer, you know what I mean? But what I've learned in a lot of that meeting with freaking thousands of customers was they don't care unless you make it relevant to them of why you're trying to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So when I write these books now, I'm trying to put in there, like, if you're doing spanning tree versus layer 3 routing, this is the reason why you would look at that from a design perspective. I'm not trying to recreate Zig's book for CCDE or anything. I'm just trying to say, hey, look, dude, this is why you want to do this. And this is why you want to think through it. And here's where I think it will help you if you do these steps, but also look at these things as an option or whatever. I try to give the rounded out, pick it up, I could go implement it, pick it up, I could go pass an exam, pick it up, I can teach it to somebody else thing.
What's interesting, something you said, I don't want to lose it, is this idea of, because we're engineers, we need to understand like why we'd want to do it. And I feel like a lot of times with certification exams, you don't have to explain that, right? Because it's an implied, like, obviously the answer you want to pass the damn exam, right? But like
for whatever that financial or
whatever the thing is,
whatever
right?
the reason is, the carrot.
But so like when we did this PACT book for the AWS ANS, we set out to give more information than you needed to pass the exam. We went beyond it to like, it is a cert exam. And so, but what we found actually, and this is kind of funny, we set out to be like, not only is this going to help you pass the exam, but like if you're doing this work, this is all the stuff you would want to know. And actually we were instructed actually to kind of pull back on that a little bit because, the goal of the book itself is still to pass the exam. So you can't give them too much, or they'll think they have to memorize like everything in the book to pass the exam.
Scares them, right? Paralyzes.
Right. So
I mean, these books are not. Some of these books are not thin, right? And going back to your point, I think that when you're talking about writing a book or education or something, you have to put yourself into the learner's mindset And it's hard sometimes for us. And I'm going to explain exactly why. We've been doing it for so long.
Oh God, that's the hardest part, dude. The hardest part of writing these books.
That like key point. I'm on right. I'm teaching the EN core class yesterday, the live lesson one for Pearson. Right. I'm on there teaching the class, and I did two things that were just like I was like I couldn't figure out why this one thing wasn't working. I'm like, why is this not working? Why is this not working? I'm like, this doesn't make sense. I've used this same CML lab 1.5 million times for this class. And why is it not working? So in Secure CRT, you have the session manager where you have all your routers and stuff, right? Well, with CML, there's something called a breakout tool. And I don't know if you're familiar with that. But what the breakout tool does is it says you can map all the nodes in your topology to a reverse telnet line. So you can actually just use telnet from your computer, SSH from your computer, or like a client or something like Secure CRT. Mm-hmm. Great. Well, I had 2 labs, right? One's a 4 router topology, one's a 6 router topology, and they both have routers 1 through 4, 1 through 6, or whatever. So I'm working on teaching EIGRP, OSPF, and BGP all in one day, which is not easy. I'm going through all this. Everything's working flawless. I'm thinking everything's great. I get to BGP, and nothing is working. None of the neighbors are coming up. Interfaces are up. I'm like, what's going on? I can't ping the other hop. I'm like, dude, I don't really know what's going on here yet. And we had like 14 minutes left of class. And I'm like, I'm not going to burn this 14 minutes to figure it out. I go, what I'll do is let's talk exam strategy for the next 15 minutes. Well, I will figure this out right after this. And then the next day, which was yesterday, we'll come back first thing in the morning. And we'll talk about BGP. We'll do BGP, and then we'll jump into the programmability automation and all this stuff, right? And it was perfect. It went great. I clicked the wrong set of routers that was pointing to a different breakout port number that was in a different lab. So when you get to those center routers, they got the wrong IP addresses. So when I paste the configuration in, nothing works. The interfaces aren't even, everything's all jacked up.
It's all mapped wrong and everything,
was, right? And then the other one that was obvious to me that I didn't realize was show run pipe SE blah. Right? I'm looking at a section of something from the configuration, running config, right? Well, you can't assume that a lot of the folks on the other end of my training class know what all these little 2-letter things mean. And I'm doing like show run pipe SE face pipe, MPLS pipe, router pipe, this pipe, that, and it's this long string of just throw up because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything to the learners.
You literally sometimes have to really reel yourself back to be like, oh my gosh, I'm assuming that you all know how to do all these shortcuts and understanding what route maps are and all this. Like, because I was teaching about like BGP weight and local preference. And when you paste the config in, yes, you have your route map to set your, and route maps was not in the course, the crash course piece, because that, so I had to explain route maps, right? So there's things that you just have to think about, and it's tough. It's worse in writing.
Yeah. It's
worse in writing because, if you forget something like, oh yeah, and then you remember it later on, you might have misreferenced in a paragraph, like in the beginning of the chapter, and you thought of something and you added it, but the two you didn't connect the two.
Actually, yeah. So I wanted to ask. I didn't get a chance to ask you this while we were writing the book, Chris. But now you got what you just said, Jace, has me curious. This is your first book. Did you run into that a lot? Because I know when I first started writing, I was a bull in a china shop with that stuff, like with just putting stuff in and then adding extra stuff, and I'm going to go back and like change stuff and having it all line up. That was hard.
For sure, yeah. I think it was like the thing is unique with our exam guide that we were putting out is also it was cloud focused. It was an AWS networking exam, right? So there's one thing that and I don't know if Tim you've noticed this particularly in the AWS community type thing. A lot of people, when they have to go for this cert, they complain about how hard it is to learn networking. Because typically a lot of people are getting into cloud, maybe they're taking the cloud practitioner certifications and learning, other things that are much easier to digest, but the networking stuff just seemed like such a hurdle for people. So when I built this, like it was so hard, like, to not boil the ocean type thing. Which I know is really difficult, but like I'm a person that needs so much context to learn stuff properly. Like I need to know every factor that goes into things. So I worked really hard on making these chapters for network fundamentals built in there, and then it just like grew and grew, and it got so long. And we're talking with the publisher, and they're like, "Hey man, you need to trim this down. There's too much in here." And
they broke it up, didn't they?
I know they did. They broke it up and even put that stuff in the appendix for kind of the reasons you're talking about now. You don't want to scare the reader. I don't want people to open this up and think like, "Oh my God, if I have to learn this much, like it's not worth it." But at the same time, like I don't know, how do you deal with that, Gooley? Like. How do you focus on not boiling the ocean and making sure to stay within your realm of the certification as well?
I think I'm going to answer that with two pronged, because one of the things that you had said was that, like we're talking about having to teach fundamentals that for a cloud first person, the fundamentals of networking would be difficult. Mm-hmm. This is literally five years ago, automation. The folks who know software development, learning the network fundamentals is very difficult.
That's so true.
It's a great point.
It's the same thing. And then now you're cloud on-prem, right? We're talking. So these things, it's like, it's such a weird scenario because you cannot, just like you said, you're writing a book about a cloud certification. You might not know what an ether channel is, which might be something that's like, necessary in that environment, right? For just redundancy, resiliency, whatever it is, right? And going back to the question now that you asked me is, how do you know where that slider is and when do you have to actually stop? What I've noticed is, and this is just based on asking a lot of the folks who read, I talk to a lot of people who read my books. I try really, really hard to ask as much and have folks message me on LinkedIn and X and all of these, Instagram, everything, to just ask. And what I have gathered, I mean, from my own analytics, right, is that the majority of the people that I talk to would much rather know the relevance, a story, and enough to get them to whatever that goal for official certification guy would be, enough to pass that section on the exam. So that's a very hard thing to do because, you almost have to rip apart everything you're trying to get them to know or to pass, to succeed on, right? Because then that's the only way you're going to know the level of depth. So for me, one of the things that seems to come naturally, and I don't even know how, and it comes out when I'm talking and it comes out when I'm writing. Because when I write, for some reason, it feels like I'm talking. If that makes any sense to anybody, if you're an author or if you've written anything, it feels like in my mind when I'm writing, I'm explaining it to Chris. Like specifically, like I am actually writing like...
Yeah, I get that.
I'm writing to some specific person. Like I'm writing to a person.
It's communication. You're communicating.
101, right? But at the same time, the mindset there is also that, when I do that, I'm writing it in more of a conversational flow than a technical manual that is absolutely dry and you want to take the paper and just double paper cut to the eyes because you can't take the dryness of that book, right? So I try to inject a little humor. I try to inject funny things, and I think that's basically it. Once I get to a section, and this is something my wife helped me with. My wife is a preschool teacher, but she's got her master's in early childhood and all this other good stuff. I was getting severe writer's block. I'd stare at this thing like I put the title into the section of the paragraph that I was going to do, and maybe I'll get a sentence, and I would stare at it. But I knew what I wanted to say. I couldn't formulate it down to paper. And she said, go in there and throw up everything that you have in your mind.
For sure.
With no punctuations. Don't worry about a period. Don't worry about a comma. Don't worry about capital letters. And just type what's in your mind. And I said, okay. So I just started going. And then I realized that, like, very fast. Like, this, it goes really fast. Like, all of a sudden, because you also have to try to keep the page count to a reasonable level, just like we're talking about here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Per chapter. You don't want a 50-page chapter and then a 20-page chapter, right? So you got to kind of try to figure that out too. And you can continue if you need to, but continue in another chapter. But so in that whole process of breaking that stuff down and kind of splitting it all up, it kind of came to me that the way that I write is very much like the way I present. And I try to do it like I'm showing you, or I'm telling you a story about whatever it is. I don't know why. I don't even know how to explain that. But when you read the books, it comes through a lot more than the super, like, I don't want to, dry is the only word I can think of, where they're real.
No, I get it.
Very wordy, very technical, like you're reading,
like reading an O'Reilly book or something, right?
Reading an RFC.
Or an RFC, yeah, even better.
RFC. I tell you, RFC, because you're just reading it and you're just like...
It's just factual statements, one after the other, basically.
And you're just like, that's not exciting. I want to know how to have fun with this too. Okay? Like, it'd be cool to turn my lights off and on, or open my garage door, or something that's low-hanging fruit that I can use. Yeah. And that's the other thing, this is a great point to Chris too, right? And the other thing I noticed is that when you're giving examples and you're teaching things, you have to inject something that is relevant to them or fun. Or something that they have access to. So one of the things that I talk about in all these things is, in simplicity, is you get to repurpose your skill set. If you're an auto mechanic and you have to troubleshoot, and you have the thing that plugs in, and you're troubleshooting, trying to figure out what's going on, and even if you don't have a diagnostic tool, and you're old school troubleshooting, I'm not getting enough spark, or I'm not getting enough fuel, or whatever it is, right? That mindset can be applied to tech. Similarly to, the folks who are learning software development, you can take software development, and there's a very good bridge into some of the technology side of it, right? There's all of these different things, but there's a way to bring them in so your skill set can be applied to another thing. And the reason I bring that up, so many people are moving into IT. I'm not going to say jumping into IT or diving into IT, but there's a lot of folks switching into IT. And I'm not trying to talk about oversaturation or anything like that, because I think anytime anybody says oversaturation, they're losing their minds, because we need a lot more CCIEs, a lot more automation experts. We need a lot more. Every person, there's a company in every corner of this world that needs IT.
Says the guy selling the books. Just kidding. Just kidding.
Buy the books.
Buy the book.
Right?
Just joking.
60K in 60 days. You heard it here.
Or your money back for the book. Otherwise, I'm going to be sued. I don't want you to sue me if in 61 days you're not making 60K. I'll give you the 12 cents back that I got.
Right? Yeah. Remit your royalty. There you go.
The royalty or the cost of the cost of the book. I will refund your shipping. I don't know.
From zero to more than the president.
The thing, it's like that's the other thing. It's so funny that you just mentioned that and we're laughing, but at the same time, when you're building a certification book, you got to be careful what you promise.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's so weird, because I almost feel like it's like all the police shows where, like, you can't promise we're going to find their kids. You can't promise, right, that they're going to survive or whatever. So I'm like, you can't promise, because...
Well, you don't control it.
You can't control it, but even at the same time, somebody gets sick and they go take an exam, they have a bad experience, right? There's a million different variations of what can happen as to you passing that exam, right? All we can do is say we've aligned this with the blueprint the best as humanly possible, at least humanly, meaning anything I've written, I'm doing it the best I can do, right? Other people are definitely probably better at some of these things than that you're on. But so from the best of my ability, right, I have to try to make sure that I give you enough, but not scare you away. And I think that was my other niche, was with the programmability books and all these videos. I'm really, really, really blessed that I'm good at getting people started and excited about it, like passionate about it. And then from there's a million experts out there who know the stuff better than me. DevNet experts, even my buddy Stuart Clark. We all know.
Oh yeah, Stuart. I know.
My brother,
friend of the pod.
Stuart.
Oh yeah, big good friend.
Great, love him, man. You know, but that's the thing. It's like there's always somewhere else you can go to get more, and I think that's the thing is, that almost slides into that mental health thing, right? Because it's like there's always another place to go and get more. And the way I look at it is like technology is a train. Like call it AI, right? AI is the new train. Technology is a train.
Treadmill,
there and you're going, oh my gosh, this is moving so fast. I just don't know that I could
get on this train. Yeah,
get on this train, right? It was programmed 5 years ago.
Well documented. I call it the treadmill, but it's the same thing. You can never get off the damn thing.
You step on that train, you are now moving with the technology. And what are you doing while you're moving? Well, you're looking out the window at the people standing there. And then what you do is you start learning. You take your AWS certification, you do this, and now you're moving ahead in cars. And then you get to the front and you're John Capobianco. You know what I mean? You know, right? He's the conductor. Actually, that would be hilarious. But he's a great guy, right? But think about what he's done in AI already, right? In our networking realm, right?
Yeah. We just had him on, actually. It hasn't come out yet, but we just had him on a couple weeks ago.
I know. I was chatting with him. So I am super excited at the fact that we have a way to explain and teach people, don't be afraid to get on the train. Programmability was just start. Just do Hello Me. Just get a Raspberry Pi.
Yeah, just do anything.
Use Alexa to turn off your lights or something. Just start, right? And guess what? 5 years ago, before that, so call it 10 years ago, what was it? It was IoT.
Yeah. Oh, for a short period of time. I remember the IoT craze for a little bit. And it's actually starting to come back now that we're getting into like edge computing and stuff.
Because now everything's connected, right? But it's just one of those things where it's like, in order to talk about IoT, you have to go talk to somebody in the business who cares about it.
For sure.
Most of the IT people don't care. Same thing with programmability and automation. Same thing with, but...
Yeah, anyway. No, this is great,
you
dude.
Go down that path for an hour, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Unfortunately, I think we're just about out of time, so we'll go ahead and wrap up here. Where can people find you online, Jason?
Yeah, at Jason_Gooley on all social platforms, or if you want to find me on Metal DevOps, metaldevops.com, or Metal DevOps on YouTube, and all social platforms as well. So, yeah.
Awesome. And we'll get that in the show notes as well. Thanks for finally being able to come on the pod. We've been, not of course no one knows but this, but we've tried like 3 or 4 times already to record. So we finally were able to make it all line up. And
yes, and it wasn't all my fault. Okay,
it was not all Jason's fault.
I'm busy for you. I just I want to make sure that I care about you guys.
No.
We were a 3-way fault for sure.
Yep, and we were very happy to finally make it all line up and get you on here, man. So we'll have to have you back soon. And so to everyone else, thanks for watching or listening, or actually I think pretty sure you can only be watching or listening. I'm not sure of a third way to consume this at this point.
Some type of wavelength. Yeah.
If you're using an AI chatbot to summarize this episode for you, then thank you for listening. I hope that makes it in the summary. And we'll see you again on another episode of the Cables Cloud podcast. Take care.